we were just looking at this carpet, and you're like, I bet there's beautiful hardwood floors under here. Like, we got to look at that. And then seeing that space come from what it was to the beautiful store it is now, like, that's what's rewarding. That's what makes me want to work harder and like support our commercial tenants and support our residential tenants and give everyone the best experience they can.
This is the Main Street Reimagined podcast, a show for people ready to turn visions into realities and ideas into businesses. Hey, I'm Luke Henry, and each week I lead conversations with Main Street dreamers who took the leap to launch a business, renovate a building, or start a movement. Their ideas, their mindsets, and their inspirations, as well as some of the highs and lows along the way. This is a place for dreamers, creators, developers, and entrepreneurs to learn, share, and be inspired to change your community through small business. Enjoy the show. Hey friends, Luke Henry here. This is the Main Street Reimagined podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much to those of you who are sharing on social media, sharing with your friends, just trying to get the message of some of the really courageous and interesting entrepreneurs that we've had on the show out to your networks. I really appreciate it. So we are here with another episode, and I am really excited to have with me Courtney Danner. Courtney is, to try to give her a title exactly is like almost not fair because she wears so many hats, but she is like my right arm, property manager for Henry Development Group. She is a hospitality coordinator for Main Street Hospitality Group. And again, she just wears a lot of hats. But thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Courtney is the brains and the muscle behind keeping all things moving in Downtown Marion with all of our different properties and projects. And you can see her most any day, walking the sidewalks, popping in and out of places, and she's a smiling face, and she does it gracefully. So thanks for being here, Courtney. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too.
So, I gave a little bit of background there in terms of what you do, but how would you describe your role exactly?
So for property management, tenant relations, coordinating maintenance, spending a lot of time in basements, talking about sewers, utilities, learned so much about everything to do with those. Triage when we have wildlife enter our properties. And usually every day has a task or a topic come up that I have no clue about, that I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. How do we do this? So a little bit of everything for property management. Hospitality group, hospitality coordinator. So run the Airbnbs, oversee the cleaning processes, get to communicate with the people staying there, make sure they have the best experience possible, make sure they know where everything is downtown so they can get the most out of their stay. And that's about it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, definitely no day is like the last, right?
That's love and hate.
Yeah. There's always something exciting. Sometimes in a good way. Sometimes things are on fire, and you're trying to figure out what to do. There's just always excitement.
Yeah.
So you're never bored.
No,
I've
definitely not bored.
Like literally never seen you be bored. So
Bored.
so that part's good.
Yeah.
So, you kind of mentioned it there, but I know one of the projects that you've been so involved with and really are most proud of and should be was the launching of now 5 different short-term rentals. So those are furnished Airbnbs that all launched in like the last year. So share a little bit about, if people haven't heard about the Airbnbs in Downtown Marion that we operate, share a little bit about those units and what that process was like getting those off the ground.
Yeah. So the very first time I heard about the Airbnbs was I walked into your office and you're like, hey, have you heard of short-term rentals Airbnbs? I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, we're going to have some. What do you think? Yeah, let's see what that would look like. So we started with the archive lofts. These were named after the quote unquote founding fathers of Marion, Harding, Eber Baker, Henry True. So we started with like, we want to give like the hallway like an archive feel. So when people walk up, they get to see what Marion was back in its prime and that it's coming back in its prime again now.
Absolutely.
So we started with the 4 1-bedroom king beds with the pull-out sleepers, and they're fully furnished, stainless steel appliances. You can bake, you can cook, you can relax. It's just like a mini apartment. So these are really good for families. These are good for people who come to town during the week. This is good for wedding season and for the bride and groom and those families. So they're located right downtown. Everything's walkable. You can go to shops, you can go out to dinner, you can go for drinks, and you can get like a real nice nighttime experience right in downtown Marion.
Yeah. So that was the goal, and I mean, I think that's being achieved, right? I mean, you're literally having those conversations with guests all the time. Both, hey, here's what you can do, and then also on the back end of it, like, hey, how did you enjoy the experience? And those are what they're telling you that they did, right?
Some of the most rewarding is people who like move out of town and then come back for either an event or a reunion, and they reach out and they're like, I cannot believe this is downtown Marion.
Yeah.
They're like, this is crazy. Like, this looks so nice. There's so much fun things to do. Like, I never heard any of this was happening. So it's like people are becoming visitors to their hometowns and amazed by what that transformation has looked like.
Yeah.
On the reverse, people who's never been here before, like, this is such a cute town. One of the best reviews I feel like we got is like, all the store owners are so friendly. I felt welcomed going into every spot we went into. There was always something to do. So those are really cool to hear on the reverse side of people who's never been here and is pretty amazed by what we have.
Yeah. So, so as I often do, I kind of drop this project into your lap, and you willingly took it and went to work researching Airbnbs and those different experiences that you had at Airbnbs. And also, you know, we talked with some other people that had Airbnbs, just trying to get some ideas of best practices and all of their processes. And you kind of soaked that all up and did research and launched the software that we use kind of on the back end. And but you know, then there's actually all of the setup of the Airbnbs, the decorating, talk a little bit about what that process was like.
Yeah, so we did about 16 weeks of research altogether, between visiting Airbnbs, talking with other operators, just researching best practices. Since there isn't anything like this in Marion, we went all over Ohio, basically. So what we learned was a lot to do with like making it comfortable and not crowded, making it user-friendly, without having too much to make the flip process become unachievable.
Right.
There was just a lot of different intricate, like labeling, making sure everyone knew exactly what we had and where it was. Just little simple things like a sound machine. Like, every bedroom needs a sound machine. People sleep better, some people don't. Every bedroom needs ceiling fans, spare blankets. So there was a lot. I remember one time in my office, I had, I think, 50 little bottle samples of lotions and shower gels just to ensure, like, not overbearing, but still fragrant enough, masculine, still feminine. Just like, there was so much thought that went into every aspect. Linen samples. I think our conference room table had stacks of boxes of linen samples for like 2 weeks, just every time going by, like, not sure about that one. Then when we actually went to order linen for 4 units, I'd say about 35 boxes of towels, washcloths, bedding, oh my gosh, just pillows. Like, all of this just like showed up one day, and I'm like, oh, linen's here.
Right,
like, it's going to take an army to move all this, but hey, we got it. And then as soon as our reno team was like, all right, pull the trigger, furniture can show up. Showed up in about 2 days for 4 units. Couches, tables. I personally have a love-hate relationship with IKEA. I had never been there before. That was an experience, coming back, unloading my car. Every time I had like a car full, like, I'd call the guys and they'd be like, oh my gosh, what did you buy now? I'm like, it's just the dishes. Like, we have dishes for 4 units. We have cups for 4 units. Like, it fills up a SUV pretty quickly. So just the process of trying to make sure it was as comfortable as possible, but still had that appeal. It's a very nice, a modern, clean, fresh look in there. And that's something that I would be comfortable going into a space because I'd want to be able to physically see like how clean it is. Everything to like the sanitizer for the couches and making sure every time it's vacuumed because I like those vacuum lines and people can see like, oh, that's obviously been cleaned. Just all the little details that make someone truly feel comfortable and have the best experience.
Yeah.
Laying on the beds, testing out all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah. There was so much. And I mean, you did such a great job, like really diving deep into that, because this is, wasn't something where we just like went to Walmart and got towels and sheets and, got like the big bottle of shampoo from Costco. I mean, it was really thoroughly curating that and going to the like linen suppliers for like really nice hotels. These are like premium linens, that are going to be durable for the amount of washing, but then still really feel nice. And it was, again, as I often do, kind of underestimated the amount of work it was going to take to do these with excellence. We really wanted it to be another one of those experiences where people walked in, and we've had people tell us this about our event venues in Marion and our restaurants and our boutiques. And I love this saying where they say, if you would have blindfolded me and dropped me in this place, I would have never believed that I was in downtown Marion. And that's like always our goal, right? When we do something, is that we want people to have that reaction to it. And I think, again, you did a fabulous job on the Airbnb. So those were the first four, the archive lofts. And then we were doing another big apartment loft project here, our Flying Fish lofts, that we've been working on this year, and completed those a few months ago and decided to do an Airbnb as part of that project.
Oh, that one was fun because it was one, I've already been through this process.
Right.
We already kind of knew what to do. It's Roaring 20s themed.
Yeah.
And so, that's a fun one. That's probably my favorite part of what I've took on to do.
Yeah. That one seemed a lot less stressful, right?
Yeah.
Because we had already test driven all the different mattresses and, knew which ones that we wanted to use and stuff like that. So. And
learning from like what little like cleaning closets or what little things I wish I had that would have been easier to maximize. Anything I could have maximized at the first round, I made sure to include that in the second round.
Right. Talk briefly about kind of the difference between, I think going into it, we were kind of like, oh yeah, like we have apartments, and when a tenant moves out and then a new tenant moves in, like we clean and, we get it ready and do a turn. So it's probably kind of like that, right? And so talk about the difference though between like doing that kind of turn and then what you go through to turn an Airbnb between guests.
So we have a great team. Abby leads up a lot of the processes for cleaning and
Abby's
staging.
great.
She's amazing. So we worked on getting a staging and cleaning guide for every single Airbnb. The cleaning checklist, like before the cleaner even starts, they need to go in and just observe it. The smell, is there any items left behind? Is there anything that might be missing? Like go through the process of that before they even start the cleaning process. Like look under the beds, look in the most unobvious spaces because that's where you're going to find stuff.
Right.
So this cleaning guide is about 6 pages long for a 1-bedroom apartment. And it has to be done so precise because it does take to maximize and completely sanitize everything about a 3-hour turn. So we do spot checks. We do flashlight check, and I advise my cleaners to do the same because if I'm walking into a hotel, I'm that person that's going to look at everything and make sure somebody touched every surface. So that's what we do. We have a flashlight hanging in our supply closet, and they are to flashlight check. We do random spot checks as well, just to ensure quality stays up there. But it is so much more detailed because you're now looking like at every little crevice, every little corner, like the inside of the kitchen cabinet. Make sure that the silverware tray was removed, everything was completely white. Like there is a lot more moving parts to a fully furnished unit. Yeah.
I mean, I remember you, we were we were finishing furnishing. We were like approaching the finish line. And I remember you skipping up and down the hallway and saying, guys, we just opened a hotel.
Oh yeah, because like our team was amazing during that process, and that was a lot for them too. You know, just like painting everything, reflooring everything. Like they put a lot of heart into that too.
Absolutely.
And so when we got to that finished project, I know one of our guys were kind of nervous when I came on, like, because I was obviously a little stressed about that because we were building a hotel, and so I like looked in every room. I looked at the hall. I was so excited. That's probably the highlight of that whole building process because I did skip through that and like, how amazing is this? Look what we just created, everybody.
Yeah.
Like, look what everyone was a part of and did. Like, it's literally a mini hotel in the middle of downtown.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is. I mean, we have on-site laundry facility there, and, you know, like all of the linens and the small shampoos and lotions and, you know, backup supplies and cleaning area and everything like that. I mean, it's on a small scale, obviously, but that is essentially what it is. And man, so much of that comes down to cleaning. And I know that you take, obviously, you know, people listen to what you just talked through, great pride in the cleanliness level of these places.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of the feedback we get too, is like it exceeds expectations from the pictures, and also this is very clean and comfortable. And that's what people look for when they're staying not at their home. They want to be clean and comfortable.
Yeah. And especially, you know, these places are, I still believe, like very affordable. You know, we stayed in a lot of different Airbnbs, and you do tend to sometimes pay a little bit more, especially if it's, you know, something small. You're not like splitting it with 4 families or something like that. They tend to be a little bit more expensive, but, you know, just such an elevated experience over, you know, one of the hotels that we have in town, which we're fortunate to have for sure. I'm glad that we do. But especially for those that want to be downtown, like wedding guests or wedding parties, or just folks, as you said, attending a reunion or something, another activity downtown, especially. It's just so convenient.
Yeah, we had a guest recently that stayed because they were coming back to town to take care of a sick family member, and they wanted to be able to cook for them. And they didn't want to inconvenience them by being in their home. So they stayed at the loft for 9 days and would cook meals in the kitchen to be able to take, to not have their family have any stress or mess.
Yeah.
So there's really cool utilizations like that as well.
Yeah, I think that we've both been really surprised at the types of kind of use cases, right? I mean, we assumed that it would be mostly wedding guests or people that were staying, you know, needed to stay downtown, but we've seen a lot of business travelers that just are so sick of staying in the same stuffy hotels week after week in different cities, and they are, you know, they love it. And I mean, they're coming to Marion on a regular basis for different business meetings and things, some traveling healthcare workers, right? People visiting family. And as you said, I think the coolest ones are those that have been away from Marion for a time and come back and really get the full immersive experience of the downtown and the nightlife and all of that, and just are so complimentary.
Yeah, I had someone that revisited, and they're like, hey, we loved the places you told us last time. Like, what did we not get to see?
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, so that's fun hearing about those. So let's kind of back up a little bit and talk about your background. I know that you didn't, like, as a little girl, said I want to grow up and be a property manager or run a little mini hotel in downtown Marion. But what did that growing up and kind of early career process look like for you?
So I believe my first big dream was I was going to be a fashion designer in New York City when I was 16. And then I went to New York City and I realized there's too many people here.
Right.
So backed off of that idea, and then went to school. I went through quite a few majors. I was pretty undetermined of what like field I wanted to really go into. But then I went back. I finished my business management and accounting degrees. And then I remember you knew my mom from when she had a small business and was a food truck that came up to Third Thursdays before I even knew what a Third Thursday was.
Right.
And so I remember I also bartended through college. So I remember bartending at the Brickyard and seeing you, and you kind of already knew about me finishing school and a little bit about my history. Your wife's really good friends with my stepmom, so you kind of knew of me. But you're like, have you ever thought of property management? And I'm like, no, sounds fun. You're like, do you want to give it a try? Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
3 years later, best decision of my life.
Here we are. Yeah.
Most days.
Most days. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Both the people that you have to deal with, like me, and also just some of the situations that come up. Yeah. So you were serving at a restaurant and had done that for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we've talked about, I think has set you up so well. I mean, yes, you had formal college and, some business classes and some of that, but also just the amount of experience I see in, the way that you're able to relate to people and kind of deal with escalated situations that come up and all of that all comes from that serving experience.
Yeah. Customer service is its own learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I often say that I think everyone should work in retail or food service because it just gives you so many people skills and just understanding of people and ways to relate, and also humility about just the way that sometimes people treat those workers. And, so anyway, I've seen that serve you really well in this role. So yeah, it's been fun seeing you put those skills to work and also just learn a lot. So, tell everyone about your first week on the job. What did that look like as you got baptized by fire?
Well, yeah, that's your favorite saying, huh? I think day 2, I was actually on roofs that's when I decided I can't wear heel dress shoes to work because I never know where I'm going to end up. We were in roofs, multiple roofs. We were in basements, just kind of getting the lay of the land of some of these properties. And it was surprising, the different things, boilers, elevators, different processes with those. It was a lot, but it was really fun because it was interesting because I knew not very much about anything of this sort.
Yeah.
So every time we would have an inspector and it'd be like, teach me, what can I do preventatively? What do you want me to look out for? When do you want me to have it serviced? So it was really fun in the beginning, learning from all these tradesmen and these inspectors of how everything's supposed to be properly functioning.
Yeah, I've seen your curiosity just really serve you well in this role, and your, again, humility that I think you've learned through your career to be able to say hey, I don't know this stuff. Will you teach me? And then you've just, accelerated your learning so much by doing that because, we have dozens of buildings and properties that all have different HVAC systems and plumbing setups and electric panels and all of this that, a single person, it takes a long time to learn about, but, we've really learned a lot through that. And, we're still learning, I guess, aren't we, daily with the things that can go wrong or that can be improved upon or made more efficient or whatever. So
yeah, the black hole of Googling at night. If I have an issue come up during the day and I don't 100% understand or know, I'll just start going through videos and going through other people's experiences and going through the technical parts of and then all of a sudden it's midnight and I'm like, okay, stop working for the day. We got it.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions to ask in an interview is, what do you do when you don't know what to do? And I've seen you answer that question with your actions 1,000 times.
Reach out to someone who knows what to do and learn from them.
Yeah, yeah. Or Google. Or YouTube.
Google is a huge source of figuring stuff out.
There's
Even
a lot
if
of
it's
information out there.
A cleaning product, can I use Simple Green on an oil stain and carpet? Is that safe? Is that the best trick? Just anything little to that to hey, this noise is coming from this machine. Dave Roush is one of my go-tos when I don't know something about boilers or HVAC or plumbing, and he'll come out and he'll check it out and he'll let me know what's going on and what I need to do in the future. Yeah, we've got a great network of local contractors and like you said, trades folks that work with us. There's a wide diversity of needs that we have, and so we've got a wide diversity of network there. And you've helped to build that, which has saved us many, many times. Lots of headaches, yeah.
Yeah. So as you kind of look back over the last 3 years in this role, I mean, what has been some of the bigger challenges that you've bumped up against?
Ooh, okay. Challenges I bumped up against. I think it's there's always something new. Elevators flooding, elevator pits flooding, trying to figure out how to not lose that whole machine. Our whole offices flooding at one point.
Yes, they did.
On that Saturday, I was checking other basements and stuff, and I was just coming here to get a tool for something, and all of a sudden I come down the stairs and the whole downstairs is flooded. One of my favorites was 2 years ago during that negative 40 degree weather we had. We were pretty much triaging. We had a lot of frozen pipes, so the whole team was in boots and snow bibs trying to make sure, like residential, commercial. So by the time I got to the one building that the tenants were out because it was a school, I walked through and there is water pouring down a stairwell. And I'm like, this isn't good. This is definitely not good. And so then I go up and it found out that our supply line on our boiler had froze and then busted. And probably a solid day and a half, 2 days, there was water pouring down these offices and across the second floor. And that was like, okay, this looks like I need to call a couple people. Yeah. Just not knowing what to do in those situations.
Yeah, that's a real trip down bad memory lane.
Yeah.
But, we figured it out. I mean, you figured it out in the one case because I was not around. And
that was a good exercise.
That was. Yeah. And you did great. But, I mean, anytime there's like severe weather, I think all of us are just kind of like our blood pressure spikes. We're just kind of like clinched up and just ready for, if it's high wind, super hot, super cold, heavy rain, because it's like, when you have a lot of buildings and most of them are 100, 150 plus years old, there's things that can happen with roofs and basements and sump pumps and pipes and boilers and all that stuff that is not always good.
Everyone's laying in bed that night, like, what phone call am I going to get? Who doesn't have something they need? Like, basically, like, is there water coming in somewhere? Is it 90 degrees and someone can't comfortably sleep? Like, it's that extreme weather. Anytime there's that extreme weather, I'm constantly thinking about our tenants and like, oh my gosh, like, I hope nothing goes wrong too bad that affects them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but something that I'm, really proud of. I think that you do a great job, and then the rest of our internal team, our contractor network, is just the ability to jump and get on those issues like so quickly.
Yeah. I'm really thankful for our team and that our team's dedication and the point of like, hey, it's 7:30 at night and we have this major issue. Like, everybody's available to help and make sure it's taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, because we just can't have the attitude of like, oh, sorry, we work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so you're just going to have to be without air conditioning, or you're going to have to be without heat, or, something like that. Or just have to deal with that, water issue.
Yeah, even if it's like the weekend and say we can't get a part for the HVAC, like we have a supply room full of portable ACs to make sure that at least somebody can sleep comfortably during that weekend until we can get someone in there first thing. Heaters.
Portable heaters,
like anything we can do to triage until we can get the part or the right person in there, we will do. This is not a Monday through Friday job, but
it is not.
It's still good.
Yeah. It's rewarding too, I guess. So I'll kind of flip that question as well. I mean, what have been, as you're, wearing this property management hat that again is just everyday unique. I mean, what have been, some of the happy moments, some of the kind of unexpected joys, like things you didn't necessarily expect would be actually kind of fun about it?
Yeah. So I love getting to know our tenants, to be honest, hearing their stories. Especially commercial tenants, seeing them have a vision and then bringing it to life. And then it's this beautiful, unique experience. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Or walking into a space. I remember debating something with carpet over across the street before Spruce and Sparrow was Spruce and Sparrow. We were just looking at this carpet and you're like, I bet there's beautiful hardwood floors under here. Like, we got to look at that. and then seeing that space come from what it was to the beautiful store it is now,
Yeah.
like that's what's rewarding.
Yeah.
That's what makes me want to work harder and like support our commercial tenants and support our residential tenants and give everyone the best experience they can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you love looking at old buildings too.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
digging into the archives of the old photos and the historical society. And
Yeah.
Randy Winland has been a great friend of ours.
Yes.
You know, he's a collector and has all these photos. And so, yeah, talk a little bit about that.
The newspaper archives, it's very interesting the things that the newspaper would produce back in the day. I love it because I was able to learn a lot more about our buildings and the different things that happened and who owned them, because they would put in the newspapers. Like the Lydia Project, Frank Bentz, who was the longest owner of that building. Like it would just be like, oh, him and this couple from this church is going out of town for vacation, and they came back and found out there was a robbery. It's like juicier than Facebook, the freaking newspaper articles back in the day. But that was able to track down different addresses because there was the renumerification of like 1917. So I was able to track beyond that back to the 1800s, the uses of some of these buildings.
Yeah.
So every time there was a new building, the building we're sitting in was Frank Brothers Department Store back in 1908. And before that, it was Dr. Sweeney's house. After he passed, they bought the property. They erected this beautiful 5-story department store that had quite about 70 years of use.
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking back of what things were gives me inspiration, gives me like motivation, like of what things can be now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So if you walk around town with Courtney, you know, she has the goods on what our buildings have been. She honestly knows more about some of them than I do in terms of some of that historical stuff, because I mean, it really has become like your hobby.
Yeah, the black holes at night. I also include looking up the old buildings and what they were. And
yeah, but it's been so fun too, again, with our friends at the Historical Society and Randy Winland, you know, to be able to take some of those photos. And if you walk through a lot of our buildings, because he had, you know, they have like these pretty nice resolution photos, you know, we've gotten them blown up and framed them. And so you can see the historical progression of some of our buildings and just the different blocks of downtown and some of the historical features and stuff that is really, really neat.
Yeah, some of the photos actually came from the granddaughter of the Frank Brothers Department Store.
Yeah.
Who contacts Randy a lot. So like it's so cool to see the preservation of that knowledge, those photos, and the history of what these buildings were.
Yeah. And really fun too. We've had a couple different instances where people have reached out to us that were their family members of people that owned the buildings at one time or operated a business in the buildings. And those have just been really fun experiences to be able to think about how, you know, we're connected through this building, through a business that their family member had, and just through the passage of time, you know, the building remains, and we're reimagining these places and giving them new life. And to think that that could be possible in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like think of one of our business owners that are in these buildings that their family member may talk to somebody in the future about what their business was today.
Yeah.
So it's just really fun to think about
It
that.
fills in a lot of spaces too, because when we're looking up the history of these buildings, at some point we're like, okay, there's like a 10-year gap. I don't know what was quite there. I can't find any advertisements to match that time frame. And then they're like, oh yeah, that was a piano store. Like, great. Thank you for that information too. That's something I couldn't find.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, you know, when you look at a 150-year-old history or on some of these buildings, like they've been a lot of things. You know, even a pretty long-term business is somewhere for 10 years. You know, that's the potential for there to be 10 to 15 different businesses in some of these stores. And it's just, and some of them a lot more than that. So it's just been, you know, just quite a task, but also fun little hobby to get into.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit. So every episode we do our leap segment. And so I know that recently you've taken a leap. So, you know, somebody listening might say, well, you know, it doesn't sound like Courtney's an entrepreneur. It sounds like she's, you know, super talented and hardworking and does a lot of things, but maybe not an entrepreneur. But actually, you recently took a leap into real estate. And so tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah, so I've always been interested and always said like it's a great idea to have rental properties. Like I've always been interested in that idea. I'm not necessarily sure how to execute it. So through working with Luke and through doing this job and having a rapport and with our tenants, and I'm like, you know what, I can do that. So I purchased a rough triplex. So 2 of the 3 units are done. Just purchased about 5 months ago. And so I now have my own tenants as well.
Yes. Yeah.
It has been so eye-opening in many ways, because this is the first. It's like, oh, so like I am going to put myself out there. I'm going to absorb all this risk. I'm going to absorb all the lessons too, though. So
yeah,
it has been a learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you said, I know that you've learned a lot with our work together. But you do learn at a different level when you're writing the checks, right?
Yes, 100%. The sleepless nights of like just trying to figure out a problem and figuring out a solution. I had one instance at one of the contractors I'm working with. He's like, Court, did you sleep last night? I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, because it shows me every time you open the invoices and you opened it at like 1, 2, 4:30, 5. I'm like, I was just trying to figure some stuff out. So, yeah, it's a lot more, but it's also more rewarding because like, look, like, cool, I did that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're building something.
Yeah.
Quite literally. So, I mean, kind of like backing up though, as we kind of think about taking the leap and like, you know, you dreamed about it, sounds like for years, like having, you know, a rental property or multiples, and you know, recognized what that could do, you know, kind of from your long-term like wealth building perspective and everything. But that's definitely a far cry from actually going out and doing it. So, I mean, tell us a little more about kind of not only the process, but even the emotion of just like the fear and, you know, kind of how you overcame that to just be like, okay, I'm going to do it.
I don't know what happened during that day at work, but I vividly remember that night that I pulled into my garage and I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, I'm going to buy a property. Like, I'm going to get on the phone right now and talk to my lender and get a loan set up, and I'm going to buy this property. I'm going to figure it out. I didn't have a property in mind because I hadn't looked for any, but I was just ready to make that leap and do that. So that night I figured out like what my budget was, what I could afford, what I could look for, and started that process and got that done within a day. And then I think I came and told you like, hey, I'm going to buy a property. And you're just like, cool. But it just kind of, like I said, I can't remember what happened that day, but I do remember I sat in the garage for hours in my car doing this that night. Like, I don't know what took over. I just finally was like, I'm not going to do it if I just keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it if I'm going to keep psyching myself out.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and isn't it interesting that I didn't even know that. I mean, that you decided first before you had a specific property in mind. And then how long was it until, you know, this specific opportunity came up?
A week.
Wow.
It was a week later.
Yeah.
That it worked, and we went through it and we went through it again. And I'm like, yeah, like the more I tried to think about it, I'm not saying go into things blindly at all.
Sure.
Because that's not my style whatsoever.
Right.
But the more I psyched myself out about it, the less likely I was going to do it. So I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do it, if I'm going to try it, I need to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Get ready, make the decision, and then it's amazing the way that things start to kind of fall into place, and that opportunities find you when you've decided and kind of lined up all the resources to make it happen.
Even at the worst, scariest moments, because I mean, this had a lot more issues than I could have imagined going into it. Like completely rewiring, completely working on half the property of structural. Like it was quite the undertaking.
It was a pretty heavy lift
for
for
my
a first deal.
property. Yeah,
exactly.
But even in the worst days when I'm trying to scramble and figure things out, like I'm so grateful and thankful that I took that leap and that I did this opportunity, because what I've learned about myself and about the business is more valuable than any kind of profit I could get from it.
Yeah. That's so often the case. I mean, whether it's a business, whether it's a real estate deal, somebody buying their first rental property. I mean, I've heard that from friends and guests on the podcast and everything, that it's just so often the first time you do it, like, you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So you're learning as you go, but that you may even lose money, you may break even, mm-hmm. but what you learn on that first deal or that first year in business or whatever is just going to set you up to do it in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't give up,
yeah.
and you keep going and just, take the leap again.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to do it again. It's going to be smarter. It's going to be better. Mm-hmm. But you can only get that from true experience and late nights of being there. And I built a wall, like just stuff like that you never would have even thought, like under supervision. But eventually, like, I felt more comfortable with like power tools and a lot of the stuff that I advise on like people to do at this job. Like, I'm actually the one doing it over there. Mm-hmm. So it really correlates and makes it a lot more educational for me here and understanding here when I see these huge projects that our team takes on.
Right.
Like, sometimes things take a little more time than you would anticipate because things come up that you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. 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 I know that we had the conversation. You were like, are you sure you're like okay with me doing this? I'm kind of like moonlighting or like, being our own competitor. And, I think I told you before, I was like, no, I'm like all for it. Yeah. First of all, you're creating a great opportunity for yourself. I want to see you do this. And I mean, honestly, I didn't even think at the time, but I mean, it's made you so much more, you've learned so much that you're putting to work here. So it's almost like, it kind of, you taking a college course and applying the knowledge to your job.
Yeah.
And so you're learning hands-on and it's been, it's helped you here, it's helped you there. And so, I mean, I'm obviously, I'm supportive of that, and it's been, super fun to see you learn and thrive through the process.
Yeah. You were the biggest supporter when I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. Great. Do it. Like, this is going to take time and energy away from what I'm doing right now. Like, you'll balance it. Yeah. It's a good idea. Like, okay.
Yeah. And you have. So that's great. So, kind of focusing back on Downtown Marion. So if we rewind 3 years, when you first started in the role, I mean, you've really been on like the front row for the downtown revitalization. At that time we'd been at it for about 3 years. So like, we're just starting to see a little bit of momentum, and now we're another 3 years along. So what do you see that other people don't see?
When I first took this job and was involved in downtown, I was so impressed with what was already like developed in the first 3 years, like the hair salon, the venues, the different retail. Like, I didn't know that kind of cool stuff existed in Marion. Mm-hmm. So fast forward another 3 years of pretty quick development, I would say. A lot of commercial spaces that tenants are putting their livelihood on the line for their passion, and to feel that energy when you walk into spaces and how proud people are and how inspired they are, like, it's actually giving me goosebumps to talk about it because it's so cool to see. Yeah. I just know the block across the street specifically, watching that development of it's now it's an inflata park, a home decor, a toy store, the visitors bureaus downtown. The Cardinal project that took place and gets people out walking and seeing all these spaces, the coffee shops, like, people who don't go downtown frequently or haven't been downtown Marion in a while are always pleasantly shocked at what's actually down here.
Right.
The biggest thing is people's like, oh, there's nothing down there. So then they don't venture down and see. So once they actually do, then they can also become an advocate for the fact that there was this really cool axe throwing place. There was this really cool restaurant. There was this really cool microbrewery. Never would I think Marion would have such a diverse attractions downtown that would actually draw people. One of the most exciting weird things I did was me and Casey, the venue manager of the Brickyard, stayed at the Airbnb to get the whole experience. We wanted the nighttime experience. We were doing some social media. But the fact that we were able to go get a nice steak dinner, have a drink, go to these specialized retail stores, like, it's really special what the experience you can have downtown Marion is now.
Yeah. Really, really, really love that. And it's fun to be like a tourist in your own town.
It's so fun.
Kind of just to approach it with that attitude. I mean, you're literally down here every day. And then we're just like, we're going to kind of like act like we've never been here before. And instead of going down to the short north and staying down there overnight and having a girls night, then we're just going to do it right here.
Oh, it was great. And it was a whole different perspective, which I didn't expect because I'm down here running around every single day. So to actually get that guest feel and hospitality, and it was really cool. That's one of my favorite experiences of downtown, was actually getting to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, as you were talking, I was also thinking about like what you see that other people don't see is like all the stuff that is in the upper floors, right? So, I mean, if somebody comes down, they're walking street level, and I mean, it's great. You see all the retail stores, the restaurants, and, all of that you just described, but also, in the office buildings, I mean, there's multiple floors of different small businesses and counselors and wealth managers and salons and estheticians and different companies that are doing business here in downtown, as well as all of the loft apartments that a lot of people don't know are there. Over 150 in the walkable downtown, which is super cool. So I was thinking about that as well.
A lot of the units are pre-existing for quite some time, so you get an actual like historic feel from these units. I have had 3 recently leased, and every time like the person that ends up getting the property is the one that's like so amazed by like all the brick and the hardwood floors. And a lot of people like, I didn't even know this was here. I was showing someone a residential unit that wasn't, and they mentioned a loft. I'm like, I got something to show you. She is now moving in October 1st and was completely in love with the place. Like, you fall in love with these big open windows and this brick and this flooring and thinking of the history of what this place was.
Yeah. And if I recall, those are like the last few that have been leased downtown came from like Columbus, Marysville, Delaware. And they're like, okay, for more than what this costs, I was getting a small vanilla box in a really boring apartment complex. Or I could have this super cool, historic, vibey spot in downtown Marion that still, it is even better than what I had there because I'm walkable to coffee shops, restaurants, boutiques, a small grocery store, a microbrewery, drinkeries, the Palace Theater. I mean, just, on and on.
That's exactly right. The one from our new tenant from Marysville, that's like exactly what she was saying. Like the cool vibes of this, I'm paying the same for much less in location, much less in like feel. And then the one from Columbus that's moving downtown, she's like, yeah, it's great. I'm used to walking everywhere. Like I see there's a coffee shop there. The Palace is across the street. Like I can go get dinner here. She's like, yes, this is what I want. I'm not cut out for country or like I want to be downtown. So people are moving from Columbus to Marion and still appreciating like the downtown, probably more than a lot of local Marion people are.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. So that's, you just have such a perspective. I mean, I was fortunate because I kind of like was unintentionally following you around the one day. I just happened to overhear some of that conversation. I mean, and you get to hear those conversations all the time, that people, just how excited they are, and people that are moving from out of town into Marion and are really excited about it. So super cool. Thanks for sharing that. So, what is something, as you think about, the work that not just we're doing, but also so many others in downtown Marion, what are you most proud of?
The fact that the community, as far as like all the local shop owners, all the organizations, DMI, the city has been a major support of downtown Marion. They're launching their new project coming up that's going to bring a lot more traffic down here and make it a lot more safe for the local businesses. They're doing a concept through transportation for a night bus. So they've been really passionate about that. Then we have Downtown Marion Inc. And all the different festivals and the Monster Dash and the Monster March and just getting people downtown, I feel like, is the goal of a lot of these local government entities and organizations. And everybody's banding together. Like everybody wants the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's pretty unique for having that many parties and that many collaborations working together.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's, of course, occasional conflicts that I hear of, anytime you get some people in a room. But I mean, honestly, it really is rare. Like you said, I mean, I see it, I hear about it as well. All of these different collaborations between the organizations. I just hosted a lunch little gathering the other day with several different leaders from across Marion, from school and faith sector and some nonprofits and some local businesses, and it came up like several different times in conversation, just the level of collaboration that we're seeing really across the downtown, but even across the community, that just people breaking down kind of the silos and barriers that have been there in the past, just because everyone, I think, is getting excited and getting on the train of the momentum of Marion moving forward. So seeing that collaboration in the downtown as well, even just kind of like ad hoc, like I go, I stop into a restaurant and I see several like boutique owners like having lunch together, just collaborating. I mean, these are quote competitors that are like, hey, we're better together.
Yeah.
And so if we can collaborate and come up with events and, different things that we can work together on and make each other better, create a better experience for the people that are coming downtown, that's going to just be good for everybody.
Yeah, it was so cool to see. I was at a promotion meeting yesterday for Downtown Marion Inc., and we have a lot of commercial spaces. The fact that like Max Air's like, hey, for this fundraiser, I'll just throw in a private event. And then the comic book store, hey, for the fastest kid at the Monster Dash, like they'll have a Flash comic book and a gift card. Like all of our local vendors are willing to do whatever they can to also help support the movement of downtown in a whole, not just their individual business, which is so cool.
I agree. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. I'm really proud of that as well, and something we can't necessarily take credit for, but just something that we can also try to support and be part of as well. So, as you look to the future, is there anything that you're particularly excited about for Downtown Marion?
Well, the Lydia project, of course.
Indeed.
But I'm excited for a lot of the cool grants that I know DMI has got that will be driving traffic down here. I'm excited for all of our tenants, residential and commercial, because residential, it's a whole new experience to living downtown, and commercial, they're creating memories as well. Yeah. That's one of the biggest thing about the archive lofts that I'm excited about is like staying in Marion is going to be a core memory for these wedding guests and these traveling execs. They'll be in California. They'll be like, hey, remember when we had that meeting in Marion and we stayed here and we went and did this and this and this? Like Marion becoming a core memory to people that aren't even from here is what's really cool. Yeah,
I agree with that. We talked a little bit on one of the earlier episodes when I had Alex Sheridan on. We were talking about the Brickyard on Main that we developed together, and since that opening, there's been over 200 weddings there. And you think about that amount of people, that one of the most vivid, most important memories of their entire life is tied to Marion. Yeah. And they're really proud of that moment, and we're really proud that we got to be a part of that moment. That's so exciting to think that we're going to continue that. Now there's 2 wedding venues downtown, and that's just multiplied all the more. And, with Airbnbs and all the experiences that are being created by the courageous people that are launching these businesses and making them happen every day. So super cool. So, lastly, another question I'd love to ask all of our guests, just because, we want to all try to be growing together. Is there a specific inspirational or educational resource that you've tapped into to help you as you've grown in your role?
So I would say inspirational. I'm a big fan of the Mindset Mentor, just because I listen to it on the way to work, and there's always a different topic of something that, even if it's just making sure you're practicing gratitude for the day, that your perception is your reality, just all that kind of stuff, to have that at the front of my day, to where if I get into some of these tough situations, I have a reference of reframework of my mind. Like, that's really important to me.
Yeah.
I've read so many books that you recommended too. I can't even think of my favorites. But Atomic Habits, I've really been rereading lately. Yeah.
Those are good.
Those are good. And then anything we venture into, if it's real estate, if it's Connect, if it's Airbnbs, all of a sudden my podcast list goes to that specific interest.
Yeah. I think just always being a learner. And I mean, you've done a great job of that, and have always been such a sponge to try to take on new information. And there's a lot of it out there. And I mean, I just think that we can't really make the excuse that we don't know how to do something in today's day and age, when there's just so much information out there for us to latch onto and get better. So that's good. Thanks for sharing those resources. So anything else that you want to add here in closing?
I think we said it all, but
I think we covered a lot of ground.
I would just say, whether you're a local or you hear this and you're not from Marion, to be open and just come check out all the local people and what they have to offer, and see their dreams in reality. Yeah.
I agree with that. So thanks for lending your passions. Thanks for being such a big part of what all is going on, and keeping the trains running on time, and all of that from day to day here. If you haven't, those of you listening, if you've not met Courtney before, again, watch for her scurrying around downtown at any given time, or she's at different downtown events, and really has gotten plugged in and passionate. I mean, you heard her talking about volunteering with Downtown Marion Inc., and sometimes still just for fun goes to bartend at the Brickyard, as a way to get to see people and all of that. So it's been great. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did having the conversation. We're looking forward to some other great guests coming up in coming podcasts. So I ask that you continue to share. If you would be so kind as to rate and review our podcast on your favorite platform as well, to help this reach more people. We'd sure appreciate that. So until next time, this is the Main Street Reimagined podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for listening to the Main Street Reimagined podcast. To learn more about Main Street Reimagined, Henry Development Group, or our work in downtown Marion, Ohio, please visit mainstreetreimagined.com. If you want to connect, or if you know someone who we need to interview, shoot us an email at info@mainstreetreimagined.com. Until next time, keep dreaming and don't be afraid to take the leap.